So this year in our district, not only are we going to be in a hybrid platform for starting school, but we are going to be introducing all of our students to iPads. They have been one-to-one with computers, and now they are going to be one-to-one with iPads. So currently I am in the Apple teacher training to understand how to use these basic apps for iPads, so I not only can utilize them myself, but I can train my students to utilize them effectively as well. So I'm Nicole with Dear Teacher Instructional Coaching, and I'm going to talk to you today about two that it took me a little while to wrap my head around the difference between. So the two apps for iPad I'm going to talk to you about today and show you a few things on is, first of all, Pages for iPad, and secondly, Keynote for iPad. So basically the way that Apple explains this is Pages is a word processing app and Keynote is a presentation tool. There are a lot of features that kind of cross with the two of them, and so for me to make sense of this in my brain, I compared them to Microsoft apps. And I know some people are like, don't do that. But, Apple, Google, Microsoft, they all have similar apps available to us. And so since not every school in the state of North Dakota uses iPads and is a Mac-based school, and not every school is a Google-based school, but every single school in North Dakota does have the Microsoft suite of apps. So it's easy for me to make that comparison to Microsoft simply because that is the one common denominator with tech that I have had in every single school and district that I have been in my 11-year career now, entering my 11th year, so 10 years. So to wrap my head around this, Pages is like Word, Microsoft Word. You have different templates for letters and reports. You can just have blank documents, but the cool part about that I haven't explored with Microsoft Word that Pages provides you is you can literally create a book. You can make a book on there and then you can publish it to your library and send it to your students. How cool is that? So that's actually one way you could even deliver a lecture if you wanted to, or deliver notes to students. That's also something really cool that they could create themselves for a way to show you their learning. So Pages, word processing, Microsoft Word, Google Docs. They're all in that one area. Keynote, on the other hand, so their presentation tool, Apple's iPad presentation tool, is Keynote. So I equate Keynote with PowerPoint, aka Google Slides if you're a Google person. So it was interesting because, like I said, there's a lot that crosses between the two, but if I'm thinking of making a presentation, there's lots of cool templates that are already available in Keynote. So you've got a couple of different options as far as delivering your own content, whether you did a book that you create in Pages or you create a presentation in Keynote. The other thing with Keynote, and I'll show you my creation from Keynote, is I made something that was interactive. And so that's really cool, a really cool feature as well when it comes to Keynote. So I'm going to show you a couple of things that I created, first with Pages, then with Keynote. You'll kind of see the differences and also the similarities. Let's first take a look at Pages. So this is the icon for Pages, so I'll click on that. And you'll see that I only have one thing that is in here that I have created so far. But if I go up to the upper right hand corner, where this plus button is. That will create a new one. And now it brings up all of these templates. So if you're familiar, like with Microsoft Word, they have all of these different kinds of templates that you can use. So say that you are going to write a letter, home to parents. You've got all kinds of templates that you can use. Let's say, for example, you want your students to write a report. Okay, you've got all kind of essay, term paper, school report, visual report. So you can get sort of creative with some of the things that the students can do. This is also interesting. I clicked on books. So there's portrait books. And I think it's interesting because they explain this is best for containing text, not so much pictures. And then if I scroll down, you'll see that the landscape books, they explain is best for image heavy or multi-column books. So, I did this activity with my creative writing students when I taught juniors and senior creative writing elective. And we wrote children's books. Well, first of all, they had first grade pen pals that they wrote to all semester. And then one of our big projects was, writing to a different audience, and they created children's books, and then they went and read them to their pen pals and then donated them to that class library. Well, if you can't do that and be in person and some of those kinds of things, you could still have students creating books. Say, for example, okay, I want you to, we studied animals, and so I want you to choose an animal that you are going to explain the basic parts of the animal's anatomy to a second grader, and adjust how that would look and those kinds of things. So that would be one kind of cool way that you could incorporate books, would be a fun presentation tool for the students to be able to use. So those are some of the templates. I'm just scrolling using my finger here so you can kind of see what some of them are. Creating cards, that could be something that would be pretty fun for students to do and create, as far as giving them some choice in how they want to present their information. So there's a lot of options there. So I'm going to hit cancel to get back to my pages. So I will click this characterization intro. So now I like how it says you're in the editing view. So since this is my creation, I get to be able to edit it. And you'll notice that and this is where I kind of struggle to wrap my brain around this, because to me, this looks like PowerPoint, but it's not. I mean, yes, you have these over here on the side where you've got your thumbnails, but those are pages in the book rather than slides on a presentation. So that's how you have to think about that a little bit differently. And there's all kinds of trainings on Apple Teacher, and you can just find YouTube videos that explain this stuff too, how to create all of these. But then I ended up publishing this. Click on my three dots. When I exported it EPUB, so electronic publishing. And that way it goes into my library of books. So this is where I edit it, create it, publish it, share it with my students, whatever. But I'm going to go into my Apple apps, go into books. There we go. And now I can see, I was reading it now, but it's also in my library. And it does, after you create something like this, you do have to have patience as far as it finally getting into your library. It does take time to do that. Whoops. What if I want to go back to the beginning? I'll just scroll back to the beginning. That's fine. Okay, so this is when the students would open it up, this is what they would see. Notice that I have the speaker in the upper right hand corner. That is because that would be my voice. Now, I recommend that if you're doing some type of voiceover, or if you're having students do that, it's really important to have the speaker in the same spot or the same area. Like if students always know, I look in the upper right hand corner or I look in the lower right hand corner, then they know, like that's where, if there's speech on this, that's where that bubble's going to be. But I'll go ahead and click it.
We're going to talk about understanding characterization today using the popular movie Moana.
Okay, so they heard me say that. And then you'll see that I have all of these, there's this little speaker on each one of these where I go ahead and talk, and I give even more instruction than what is just on the page. So students can go ahead and listen to that as they see fit.
Using this T-chart, go ahead and fill in what was Moana like in the beginning of the movie and what was Moana like at the end of the movie.
So what's cool is then students would be able to use this T-chart to go ahead and complete that, and then when they go to the next page, they'll see the things that I wrote, and they'll click the speaker to hear a little bit more of my explanation for why I wrote what I wrote. Explaining characterization, it's really cool because you can edit all of these different things that are on here. I just used a template and then edited from there. And then I have, of course, my summary slide, and you'll see you can bold, you can underline, you can italicize, you can change text color, all of those very basic things that you can still do. So templates are really easy to utilize with Pages, and publishing things, ePublish, is a really great way to get some of those lectures and those types of things to students, but you can also just simply share the page as well. So that is Pages for iPad. Now I'll show you Keynote. So this is what the Keynote icon looks like. Remember, this is more of the presentation tool that is used for Apple. So you can see a little bit different than what I had created on Pages. I was trying to figure out different ways that I could do presentations. So this was kind of almost like a lecture presentation. A long walk to water summary activity would be something I'd have the kids fill out. And then this plot diagram review is something that was the interactive thing that I created. So the presentation, the other summary activity, those aren't anything crazy or special or anything like that. But when I open up the plot diagram, and then you'll see up here there is a play button. So I'll hit the play button. And so now what I did is I created this. So let's say students are reviewing plot diagram and they're like, okay, I'm pretty sure this is exposition. They click it. And then I have it linked to this slide where it says, explains what exposition is. They can click anywhere. And then as they click on these certain areas of the plot diagram, it takes them to a further explanation so they can review, like for a plot diagram. So that's kind of an interesting way to like do a game, I guess you could say. And I just pinched my fingers together to get out of there. Otherwise, presentations, like very basic as far as what you can do. I will click the plus button up here so you can see the templates. So here's, and they call them themes, not templates. And I'll just scroll through. So whereas before on Pages, they had them as like business letter, resume, those kinds of things, postcards, certificates. These are kind of categorized a little bit differently. So I'll just scroll through so you can see there's some very basic ones, bold, editorial, minimal, a portfolio, something that's more crafty or more textured. And students can look through these and see what all, which one might fit best with something that they are going to be presenting either to you or to the class or to their small group or whatever, however they want to show their learning. So this is one way that students can do that, but this is also a good creation tool for you as a teacher.
So that's what I've got so far for Pages and Keynote. There are all kinds of YouTube videos out there that can show you more in-depth and super creative things that you can do. And also a lot of that creativity comes from playing around. And also, don't be afraid to throw this stuff out to your kiddos and be like, hey,
show me something cool. Because that's one of the best things is when we learn from the students. We don't want to be the experts. We want them to struggle and have some perseverance and discover things on their own, because there's a lot of really cool emotion that comes with that too. So that's Keynote and Pages for iPad. Dear teacher, get creating.